From the Star in Frisco, as the Dallas Cowboys trade up in the 6th round to go get Eric Scott, the cornerback from Southern Miss. And the Cowboys make the trade with Kansas City. Still looking for complete compensation, but I believe it was next year's 5th-round pick is what we have on the table for the Cowboys to get back up to the top of the 6th at pick 178. And we'll hear from Eric Scott in a moment. We'll hear from the secret audio and possibly from defensive backs coach Al Harris as well. We've got Bobby Belt, Brian Broaddus, Zach Wolchuk, Aisha Morrison. I'm Kyle Yeomans. All right, Brian, scouting report on Eric Scott.
Yeah, Eric Scott, 6'1", 197, Southern Miss, and he lines up at what we call the field corner. And so that means you have a boundary corner and a field. So he plays the majority of his snaps where he's got to cover a lot of ground. And so that's something that's pretty impressive. They play a lot of zone coverage, though, at Southern Mississippi. So you kind of see him play a little sideways with his rear facing the sideline. But the movement is really, really good. This guy doesn't have any tight movement at all. Very fluid in the way that he plays. He reacts really well to the receiver when he's pressured. When he's pressed and has to make a decision, he's able to stay with this guy. He's not afraid to make tackles. He's super aggressive in the way he plays the game. 78 tackles, 51 of those were solo with those tackles for loss and stuff. The fumble recoveries, 5 interceptions. I mean, he's played 34 games, so he's played a lot of snaps. And I'll tell you what, though, the thing I like about him is, though, he was one of those guys that when you watched him, though, I mean, he was always around the ball. I mean, that's I can see why the Cowboys, when you watch the Southern Miss tape, the ball gravitates towards him, and he's able to make those plays. You see right here, if you're watching with us, that he had 2 interceptions this year that were returned for touchdowns, and so. He's that type of guy that could finish on the play. But I love the size at 6'1", 197, and I love the movement skills with this kid.
Zach, you said he looked like a Dan Quinn corner when you watched him initially. And the 4.71 is kind of the one knock I had against him is that game speed. I think he plays faster than that.
I agree.
And you can see it on film. But for the most part, what I love about Eric Scott the most is that he is physical.
Yeah, he'll hit you. He'll hit you, and he's not. I mean, you were talking about this. He's not shy about coming in and supporting in the run game. I love the long arms, and that's really what does it. Like you see, kind of a long, lean frame, the arm length there, the vert that he had. You can see him go up, high point the football when it comes to this. Now he does get a little bit aggressive. I mean, I will say this: like he's a guy that's going to try and undercut the football, make a play on it. Sometimes I'd rather have that though than just have a passive corner that's just going to, all right, he catches, make the tackle. But he's not afraid to try and make plays on the football, and he definitely is going to be a day one special teams player. There's no question about that.
Yeah, and that's something that I guess we haven't really touched on a whole bunch, but the Cowboys did lose some guys on the special team side of things, and it's important to continue to replenish that. CJ Goodwin is still here, but you lost to Luke Gifford. I mean, some of these guys are also, they're going to start off as special teams and make their way up, and that's the reason why they're here.
I think overall with Scott specifically too is we talked earlier in the weekend about how corner is a sneaky need for this football team.
Right.
Not necessarily at the top. You feel comfortable with Trayvon Diggs and Deron Bland and Stephon Gilmore, at least for this year. But developmental corner has been a position that might need some depth with Nashawn Wright. Of course, Kelvin Joseph hasn't worked out the way that you wanted him to. But corner would have been a pick at some point throughout the weekend. If everybody was asked in this room prior to the start of the day, on day one, I think we would have all said corner needs to be a selection at some point. Now they finally went out and got him, Brian, and they found a corner that they liked and that fit their mold.
Yeah, that's the whole idea is that the guys, when you get to the 6th round, 7th round, you're looking for traits, vertical jump, shuttles, speed, 10-yard splits, and production, when it comes to tackling, turnovers. I mean, you're looking for things, there's a lot of people that didn't, like I said, Daniel Jeremiah, Dane Berger, 2 guys I really respect, didn't have the particular player, but that's what happened. It happened to me with Fehoko a little bit. Let him, slip through the cracks on that. I keep kind of going back to that, but that's where we're at right now. I mean, that's the great thing about scouting. Somebody went down to Hattiesburg, Mississippi. They worked out Eric Scott. He's played a bunch of plays. In a bunch of games and stuff like that. And the traits are just probably too good for them to pass up. And I'll say this, though, too. People will say, well, gosh, you took him, way too early. it doesn't matter where you take the player. Just take the player. That's the thing. Oh, it's a reach, this, that. No, we've talked about it a bunch. They, in my opinion, they deserve the benefit of the doubt. If they got a guy that much and they go get him,
yeah,
I think I'm gonna say, okay, until I see this kid physically play. But the tape for Eric Scott is good to where you would go, okay, I see what they see in this particular guy.
No, I completely agree. And they have had their eye on him. They brought him in for a 30 visit. They sat him down. They knew they were going to think about this conversation at some point, that this was going to come up over the weekend, whether it comes as an undrafted free agent. But I think, like Bobby said earlier, that the trade shows that they didn't think he would even last to the 7th round.
Yeah, because they had 2 more picks, and so they must have thought somebody was coming to get him. Or they thought somebody was a threat in there. And so if they like him that much, then that probably means they have an indication from the rest of the league that somebody else likes him too.
Sure.
Then go get your guy.
Well, you had another corner go 2 picks later to Arizona and Contrell Clark out of Louisville. So maybe that could have been Eric Scott Jr. right there if they didn't make the move up to go get him.